speak, and in his address he urged African governments to prioritize value addition and the strategic use of the continent's diverse resources. He also emphasized the importance of turning raw materials into finished products, which is something many other speakers have spoken about, which would create more jobs, boost local economies and reduce reliance on imports. Now, the summit is aimed at adopting the Kampala Declaration and a 10-year Caadp strategy and action plan, which is focused on advancing agricultural transformation across the continent. Nearly 55 African governments are represented. Earlier this morning, we also saw the president of Ethiopia speak, and he made emphasis on empowering women and the youth in the agricultural sector. If we are to go further, we also saw the development partners and a representative of the development partners speak, and they did reiterate their support to efforts by the African Union and national and regional efforts to propel the agricultural sector forward and see through whatever would be discussed and agreed on and signed in the Kampala Declaration. Also, the president of Angola spoke, and also that was this morning. Later on, there was a closed session of the presentation of the Kampala Caadp Declaration and the interventions of the heads of state of government. However, there was also a press conference this afternoon of the African Union commissioners, where a call was made to African countries and the African commissioners represented that work needs to be done by African states to meet environmental sustainability in order to penetrate world markets. In about 20 or so minutes, there will be the closing ceremony for the Caadp summit, where a presentation of the draft Kampala Caadp Declaration will be made, and also we will see the Minister Frank Tumwebaze for Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries and the chair of the AU to Agriculture and Rural Development, Water, Environment also will be presenting that Kampala Declaration. Earlier on, we saw some heads of state depart. President William Ruto of Kenya has left for his country. The Somalian president also, President Hassan Mahmoud, has also left for his country, and Burundi's President Evariste Ndayishimiye has left for his country. We are expecting more heads of state to be departing. That of Angola, President Manuel Lourenco, the Vice President of Liberia, representing the President of Liberia, that is Vice President Jeremiah Kawong, and the President of Ethiopia, President Selassie, who earlier on called for empowerment of the youth in the agricultural sector, will also be leaving, as well as President of Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, that's His Excellency Brahim Ghali. And right in the screen is Entebbe International Airport as we wait for more heads of state to be leaving. We will take you to Munyonyo as well, as we look forward to the closing ceremony for the Caadp Summit. Now, some of the deliberations that came out, some of the statements that were made by the heads of state this morning. President Museveni talked about how Uganda will be an advanced and prosperous country on the basis of 4 sectors, and those are commercial agriculture, manufacturing, services, and ICT. He also took us through the journey of Uganda. Meanwhile, the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Faki Mahamat, told the African heads of states and development partners at the extraordinary African Union Summit that the summit is a pivotal moment for Africa to mark the adoption of a 10-year Caadp declaration. She said Uganda should be very proud because for the next years, the world will be referring to Kampala Caadp declaration that has replaced the Malabo Caadp declaration. Now, she also revealed that African Union has led the development for a new 10-year Caadp strategic and action plan 2026-2035, whose vision is to build resilient and sustainable agri-food food systems for a healthy and prosperous Africa. Meanwhile, President Selassie of Ethiopia did urge the heads of states and countries represented not to take the gathering as just a meeting of minds, but a convergence of shared aspirations, collective challenges, and unwavering commitment to the future of agriculture and food security on the continent. He also called on his fellow heads of states and development partners to recognize the critical role that agriculture plays in the socio-economic fabric of Africa. He noted as well that agriculture is not merely a sector, but the backbone of economies, the source of livelihoods for millions, and a key driver of sustainable development. And as you see on your screens, dancers ready to see through another head of state as they depart. We earlier saw President William Ruto leaving, Somalia's President Hassan Mohamud leaving. We also expect a couple more heads of state and their representatives to be leaving. President of Angola, Manuel Lourenco, Vice President of Liberia, Jeremiah Kwong, that of Ethiopia, the President of Ethiopia, President Selassie, and President of Sahrawi Arab Democratic, Brahim Ghali. Earlier this morning, the development partners attending the African Union Summit on Comprehensive Africa Agricultural Development Programs did express their commitment to support the new 10-year Development Strategic Action Plan of African Union that is going to be adopted under the Kampala Declaration. They said they would support in areas of technological advancement, governance. It has been noted through the 3 days that majority of the African countries that are still facing food insecurities are also conflict-stricken, and this is an issue of governance. Now, this summit comes in response to Africa's growing food security challenges. These have been exacerbated by climate change, conflicts as we see in the north of Africa and in the Central Africa, and economic disruptions. The expected outcomes are aimed to catalyze concrete actions to build resilient, inclusive, and sustainable agricultural sector across the continent. Of course, the free movement protocol was also discussed earlier on in the press conference of the African Union commissioners, and also free trade movement. It is still a challenge in most countries, as some argue against it due to security issues. Other key challenges that Africa is facing that have been discussed today are low productivity, and some of the solutions that have been spoken about are to improve access to technology, something that the development partners have reiterated their support in. The development partners also said they would put their efforts to build governance frameworks that foster transparency and accountability. They also said they would ensure national and regional agri-food systems and plans, those to align with the African Union and the states affiliated, and to align with the Caadp strategy and the Kampala Declaration that will be adopted today. They also recommitted to reviewing the processes therein and align investments with national and regional priorities. They also mentioned support on ensuring that the private sector gets on board in financing some of these agricultural developments, since public funding alone cannot be enough. The call for more training as well has been made, training of smallholder farmers, and also empowering them to be able to produce at a large scale. Now, Vision 2063 is a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. At the airport, President of Burundi, Ndayishimiye, exiting. That's President Evariste Ndayishimiye heading out, escorted by Ugandan delegates and also Minister for Presidency Millie Babalanda out of the VVIP lounge to the tarmac. Of course, he was here to attend the Caadp Kampala Summit, the extraordinary summit of the heads of state. President Evariste Ndayishimiye of Burundi exiting the country. Earlier on, President Ruto of Kenya departed, and that of Somalia, President Hassan Mohamud. President Evariste Ndayishimiye saying his goodbyes to Minister for Presidency Millie Babalanda and other dignitaries present, and he boards the jet. In a few minutes, the closing ceremony will begin at Munyonyo Conventional Center, where other heads of state and dignitaries are converged. We will see the presentation of the draft of Kampala Caadp Declaration And later on, President Yoweri Museveni will give his closing remarks. And the President of Angola, President Lourenço, who is the first Vice Chair of the African Union, will also give his closing remarks. That will be at Munyonyo Conventional Center. President Evariste Ndayishimiye of Burundi is leaving the country. Many more presidents and heads of states and representatives will be leaving this afternoon. The President of Angola is expected to leave after the closure of the ceremony in Munyonyo. Vice President of Liberia, President of Ethiopia, and President of Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. Give. Welcome back. You are still watching UBC as we cover day 3 of the Caadp Kampala summit. Now, today morning we saw the extraordinary heads of states and government summit of heads of state and government of the African Union, and we had an opening statement by the chairperson of the AU Commission. Chairperson Faki Mahamat told the African heads of state and development partners convening at the extraordinary African Union Summit on Comprehensive Africa Agricultural Development Programs that the summit is a pivotal moment for Africa to mark the adoption of the new 10-year Caadp declaration, which will be presented later on today. Faki said that Uganda should be very proud because for the next 10 years, the world will be referring to the Kampala Caadp declaration that has replaced the Malabo Caadp declaration. In response to the directive of the heads of state and government, Faki revealed that the African Union has led the development of a new 10-year Caadp strategic and action plan 2026-2035, whose vision is to build resilient and sustainable agri-food systems for a healthy and prosperous Africa. Let's play you back that statement.
Your Excellency Tai Selassie, President of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and champion of the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program, Caadp. Excellencies, Head of State, Government and Delegations, Honorable Ministers, Madam Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, esteemed African Union Commissioners, representatives of the regional economic communities, representatives of our development partners, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great joy that I set foot in this splendid, verdant city of Kampala, which has been decked out in all its colors to host this important African Union extraordinary summit to assess the situation of agriculture in our continent. I'm particularly pleased to address to His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, President of the Republic of Uganda, to the government and the brotherly people of Uganda, my best wishes for the year 2025, and my warm thanks for the quality of the welcome marked by brotherhood and the special attention, and even more for all the efforts made to ensure the best conditions for success in the organization of this summit. Holding a summit on agriculture in Africa in Kampala is the right thing to do, a wonderful sign of recognition of your total commitment, President Museveni, to farmers and headers. You yourself are a farmer. You are also a champion of transforming agriculture into a powerful lever for wealth creation for the people of Africa. Excellency, ending my tenure in African Union, I think I should come here to learn farming from your experience. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Africa is proud to have more than 60% of its population young. It is also proud to have 60% of the world's uncultivated arable land, water and forest resources that place it at the forefront of the world. This is why it is deeply questioned about its current paradoxical food security situation. Hunger still kills in Africa. The profound disaffection between the land and African youth The disaffection of these young people with agriculture and the rural world, their break with the ancestral world toward urban uncertainties and perilous immigration, all these increase our existential drama. Who do we hold responsible for such phenomena? Not on the youth, for sure, but on our systems that have failed to promote efficient strategies that generate hope and prosperity in our lands. Such concerns have been yours, have been ours. You thus opted for an institutional solution through Caadp, adopted by the Assembly of the Union in 2003 in Maputo, Mozambique. This ambitious program has been implemented since 2014 within the framework of the Malabo Declaration. The various biannual evaluations of the commitments made by member states initiated in 2017 under this declaration certainly show progress toward achieving the set objectives, but at an unsatisfactory pace of progress. This is why I would like to welcome the preparatory work undertaken by the African Union Commission, ODA-NEPAD, the regional economic communities, and experts of our member state, as well as our technical and financial partners, in preparing the post-Malabo Declaration, or what will be known as the Kampala Declaration, submitted here today for your approval. That lie at the root of the low rate of the attainment of our set objectives for agriculture sector on the continent. Excellences, Monsieur le Président, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État, de gouvernement et de délégation, Mesdames, Messieurs, il est clair aujourd'hui.
It is clear today that despite all these commendable efforts, the food and nutrition security situation in Africa has not structurally changed. Hundreds of millions of Africans continue to suffer in total despair from famine. They languish in destitution and extreme nutritional fragility. Without indulging in self-flagellation, we cannot be truly proud of our results. Our conscience would revolt against us. To face this major challenge courageously is our greatest task of the moment. Clearly, many factors could explain this shocking dichotomy between our immeasurable potential and the state of the poignant needs of our peoples in terms of food and nutrition, in the face of which all the discourse on food sovereignty loses its credibility. Among these factors are those linked to external events, which of course are beyond our control. I refer to the wars outside and inside Africa, like the Russia-Ukraine war, the Sudanese conflict in which 30 million people are living in a humanitarian tragedy. We must also mention the pandemics, natural disasters, recurring droughts and floods, and other El Nino phenomena. Thus, climate change continues to threaten our food systems and expose us to very serious risks of famine and undernourishment in many regions of the continent. On the other hand, some factors are directly of our making. Here is a striking example. The Maputo Summit of 2003 had coupled the establishment of the Comprehensive Agricultural Development Program with the important decision requesting member states to devote 10% of their annual budget to agriculture. The level of implementation of the decision has not been assessed. Similarly, it will be relevant to ask the questions, that is the report on the implementation of the Malabo Declaration and the biennial reviews have not been submitted. The problem that is getting dangerously worse. Not only is the disaffection for manual agricultural work deepening, but rural exodus and immigration are widening the gap. The projection of UN Habitat indicates that in 2030, that is in 5 years' time, Africa will have 824 million city dwellers, or that is 48.4% of its population. In the absence of drastic measures to stabilize populations and ensure prosperity in rural areas, the phenomenon will inevitably worsen and suffocate cities with all the attendant risks of destabilization. Faced with these challenges, what can be done? First, we must make agriculture a real priority sector. We must put the hoe in the museum and correlatively invest in the acquisition of appropriate means of agricultural production. I'm here referring to mechanization, digitalization, enrichment of soil, and so on. To be used in
Chairperson of the African Union Secretariat, Excellencies, heads of state and government, and all the heads of delegations. I thank you for having come to Uganda for this conference and for having agreed to have your conference here. The subject we have just discussed is a primary one: agriculture.